draft more receiving talent. You are going to lose Cooper Kupp.
Wait, you're going to lose Cooper Kupp? Are they?
Like, he's not going to play for eternity. Like, you think he has like the Infinity Stones?
Well, wait, how old is Cooper Kupp? You said that like he's like retiring soon.
He's 31, brother. Or he's going to be 31 next year. That's old.
Damn, is he?
Yeah.
No, his game's timeless. He's going to do the Jerry Rice thing. The last year that he played was 2004. He was 42 years old.
Holy smokes.
He had a 1,200-yard season in 2002 as a 40-year-old.
That's way more impressive than what Tom Brady did. Am I crazy for saying that?
Yes, because Tom Brady could still be playing today.
Trevor, the next wide receiver that's 35 years old that has 800 receiving yards, when's the next time that happens?
Cooper Kupp!
Like, dude, think about this. Julio Jones is wearing like obscure numbers that like the equipment department has to like make up on the fly. He's probably like 33.
He's 34.
Yeah, exactly.
Julio has not had a 1,000-yard season since 2019.
Exactly.
When he was 30.
I stand by it. What Jerry Rice did was way more impressive than Tom Brady. There are receivers right now that are 32, and people are like, this guy's cooked beyond belief.
You basically put Cooper Kupp in a morgue 5 minutes ago. Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That's not Connor Rogers. That's the one and only Brad Spielberger, here to join you for a little bit of free agency episode, right? Free agency is about to kick off. Obviously, this is a draft podcast, and we talk a lot of draft here. But as anybody will tell you, free agency happens first, right? And you got to figure out what teams are going to do with some of their needs there, and what that's going to mean for their draft strategy when we get to the end of April. So, Brad, one of the best in the business, I would say the best in the business, at taking a look at the free agency pool and what teams are going to do, their salary cap situation, their team needs, all that good stuff. Brad does so much great work over at PFF.com. And so I felt like, what a better time to get him on than as free agency is only a couple of weeks away. So we talk about those team needs, whether or not we think teams are going to be more in on free agency for their needs or more towards the draft. So we're doing NFC today. We'll do AFC in a part 2 episode a little bit later this week. But Brad, it's so great to have you on the show, my friend. How you feeling?
Yeah, great to fill in. Feeling pretty good. And like you said, we have this 1 month window right now. It's, I'm cool for like a month out of the year. You draft guys are doing mock draft, 6.0, and it's only February 15th. So I'm battling out here and trying to fight against the mock draft conglomerate, that is spearheaded by Trevor Sikkema. But no, doing well, looking forward to it. A combine is always when you get all the little intel and nuggets and hear some things. So it's going to be a fun couple weeks and month ahead of free agency. Yeah,
but you are truly all powerful for like 10 days. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like the week leading up to free agency, the tampering period, and then when guys actually start signing, it's like everybody, like your name, I feel like is one of the most Googled names just in all of Microsoft. So look, you talk about ours is a little bit more spread out, but you've got the concentration of dominance there within the 10 days, but we're getting ahead of it here. We're doing that here with some NFC teams. And I'll give you the choice, which we'll go division by division. It keeps it pretty clean. So is there a division, I don't know, that you want to talk about the most in the NFC to get us kicked off? We're obviously going to talk about all of them, but where you want to start here, my friend? You're the guest. I'll let you begin.
That's interesting. Yeah. We could just go, kind of straight through like east, north, south, west, if you want to just keep it real clean.
All right.
And I think the NFC East is compelling for a couple of reasons, which we'll get into.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about, oh God, now I sound like every television. Let's start with the Cowboys. Let's talk about Dallas first. Let's pay the bills. Let's get the clicks. What do we think about Dallas, right? Dallas is in a situation where it feels like a lot of their guys should have been there. It should have been a little bit more success than we saw in the postseason from them. And there's a lot of reasons why this didn't happen. But, when we talk about the potential draft needs for the Cowboys, we often look at offensive line because Tyron Smith's a free agent, right? They've got some interior guys as well who might be on their way out. What do you think about the Cowboys? What's their salary cap situation look like? Do you think they're going to be more in on free agency, or is this a team that's going to lean more on that back end of the first round pick to supplement some of those needs?
Yeah, Dallas is one of the lowest spenders in free agency almost every year. They are a draft and develop franchise, always have been. That is the kind of Jerry Jones philosophy. And I mean, he'll pay his guys internally, but doesn't really want to make a bunch of splashes. And I think you'll see the same thing here because Dak Prescott probably looking at one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. I think CeeDee Lamb probably joins maybe gets into $30 million per year wide receiver conversation. Oh yeah. And then he is eligible. It's not going to happen. And I actually want to give Micah Parsons a shout out. Dude, he knows ball at an extraordinarily high level. And by that, I mean every element, every aspect. He said in his show, I know I'm not the priority this offseason. I'll get taken care of next offseason, which is that's how it works. So but it's interesting because most players, understandably, are just yeah, I want a bag. I'm eligible for a bag. Let me get a bag. Mike is So the Mike is gonna get I think he'll become the first $40 million per year defensive player in the NFL if I had to bet. So, oh yeah, I think that's what we're gonna get next offseason is we'll get. Whoa. He'll have to still be Micah Parsons, but Bosa's at 34. If we can get some guys to get in that range.
Man,
and then maybe not 40, but it'll be close.
Yeah, it'll be close. I mean, to even talk about it like that.
Yeah.
Now, the league obviously is they're making more and more money, and people talk about this guy versus the past player. It's not just that the latest guy always signs the biggest deal. The salary cap does rise almost every single year, and so that goes into it as well. So it's not is Micah Parsons $6 million a year more than Bosa or some of these other guys? It's not exactly the way that you would want to go about it. But still, hearing that number, a defensive player getting anywhere close to quarterback money, if you will, getting into the high 30s at least is man. So okay, so what about offensive tackle? We talk about offensive tackle often for this team in the draft. Do you think they lose their guys? Either do you think the Tyron Smith's going to be out of there? Do you think they're going to lose the rest of their free agents that are along that offensive line, or what do you think?
It's interesting. So, Biadasz been an important piece for them. I feel like he's been a leader and vocal, guy along this unit, but didn't get the early extension, which can happen at center if you're viewed as kind of a focal point because you're not going to break the bank at that position necessarily. So I feel like he might be on the way out, and they think they can just kind of churn and find a new center. Tyron Smith, it seems like he is either play for the Dallas Cowboys or don't play football anymore type of guy. If I'm him, if Kansas City comes in and says hey, we're moving on from Donovan Smith, we want Tyron Smith, I'd probably listen to that offer. Otherwise, though, I'm I'll just stay in the Big D and just try to make it work, see if I can get a ring with the team I've been with forever. So I do think they'll keep the tackles. Terrence Steele should be better next year when healthy. Center is the interesting one. There's a ton of options, but yeah, I think they're going to attack it in the draft as they always do. Even I think they'll probably add a tackle very, very early, no matter what happens with Tyron Smith. Or think Tyler Smith could kick back out, or do you think he's too good and you got to just leave him where he is at this point?
Right. Yeah, some other needs for him. And potentially wide receiver for this team, given that Cooks is going into the final year of his deal. Gallup wasn't as good as we thought he was going to be this past year. Potentially running back as well, with Tony Pollard being a free agent. So just some. But like Brad said, this is a team that doesn't tend to spend a lot of money, so don't expect a huge splash. If anything, they're going to bring back their guys, but that's the big question with Dallas. Let's go to the Philadelphia Eagles next. What do you think about the Eagles situation? Start of the year, hot, right? A lot of wins, and it just did not manifest itself into a good football team when January rolled around, and they had to run into the Baker Mayfield train. It's not their fault. It's just a bad luck of the draw right there. Nobody's beating Baker on Wild Card Weekend. Everybody knows that. But look, you've got this Son Reddick situation where it's all right, did you request a trade? Didn't request a trade. Wants an extension with the team. I don't know. You had them made some moves last offseason with being able to bring back Bradbury. They traded for Kevin Byard. What do you think about this team overall when it comes to their salary cap and what they might be in free agency versus the draft?
Yeah, the Reddick move is interesting because it can be a bit of a tell, but we sort of saw the same scenario with Darius Slay last year. And that's the Eagles basically saying, all right, we don't think we're going to find a number on an extension that the player is going to sign. So we're going to get out ahead of this and very quickly make it clear, look, we're trying to trade you because there's still value there. We're the Eagles, so we're never going to be a year late. We'll always be a year early. So, hey, we're not going to extend you to the money you probably want. Therefore, you can go seek out a trade, and that new team can bring you in and then extend you to a number you'd like to see. And you see Reddick come out and be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I didn't ask for a trade. That's
going back to what you said before. I just want a bag. Just give me the bag.
Yeah. So, but then Slay, that kind of happened last year, and then they circled back and found a way. And I probably can't say the team name, but there was a team that thought they had a deal done or very, very close to done with Darius Slay. And then at the 11th hour, Philly was like, actually, no, we're going to figure it out. So I don't know if I get the same sense here, though, because Slay is like a 30-year-old corner at that point. We're talking about a 29-year-old edge rusher that never got his massive payday because he basically got signed still as now he's an outside linebacker, but he was drafted to be an off-ball guy and got a decent 3-year 45 from Philly. So anyway, I don't think they're going to spend a ton. They're going to, I imagine on the interior, you just kick Cam Jurgens back to center. Maybe have Tyler Steen take over at right guard. But again, a team that, they have some flexibility, but I think they're going to focus on just, they have extra draft capital, all those things, and just try to get younger because that team is too old right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I feel like Philly is one of those teams where it's like, hey, you kind of went pot committed with some veterans and some trades already. It doesn't feel like they're going to be able to do that in free agency. So, corner, often something that is mocked to them. They've got two second-round picks. They've got New Orleans second-round pick as well. So I'm seeing on Tankathon that they do have a third-round comp pick as well. So they got 4 picks in the top 100. We talk about linebacker all the time with Philly. I don't know how early they're going to draft a linebacker, but that's a need. Potentially offensive line, you mentioned. And then corner's the big one. I think that's where we always gravitate when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles in the first round. And from your conversation, it does sound like that is the area that they are going to attack if they're going to keep it need-centric. What about the Giants? I feel like the Giants are a mess. I feel like we don't know what to think about the Giants. A year ago, turn back the clock. Brian Daboll is winning Coach of the Year. They're making the playoffs. They're way ahead of schedule. They're thinking that Daniel Jones could be worth a contract extension, obviously, because they give it to him. And it fell apart. It fell apart in almost every way. So are the Giants going to be a team that needs to be active in both? More to the draft, more to free agency? Because now all of a sudden we're at a point where this regime's kind of on the hot seat going into the season. So they've got to use a lot of their resources. Do you think that will mean in free agency, or who's some guys that you think might be in and out there?
I think they could attack guard in free agency. I think you can't sit around and try to fix this offensive line with more draft capital, hope that some young player can step in. It's just unrealistic. So I think they could make a splash potentially. A guy like a Kevin Dotson.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah, with the Rams this past year, good gap scheme guy. I know the Giants' offense is pretty diverse, but I think Kafka wants to be downhill. And who knows what happens with Saquon Barkley, but he can kind of, he can work in any system really, and I think he'll find a way back. So I think guard is a big one for me. Mark Lewinsky, not a free agent, but is probably going to be a cap casualty if I had to guess. And I think getting a really, really good right guard also maybe helps an Evan Neal grow at right tackle. So that's the big one for me. I think they are going to be in the market for those top end. I was trying to say Robert Hunt on top of Kevin Dotson, two very, very good football players. A lower end guy for me that I like as a potential fit would also be John Simpson from the Baltimore Ravens. If they want to just add a little bit of a nastiness,
sure.
He has. I've said this before, but his pole blocking snaps in Ultimate are like the funniest thing. He destroys DBs and linebackers when he gets ahead of steam. Like the guy is this year alone, he had like 3 or 4 of the laugh out loud reps. So if they want to bring like a nastiness and an edge to their team, I like him as kind of a cheaper option too.
Okay, I like that. It's good. I'm glad that you focused on offensive line there, because the other question is like playmaker in the passing game, right? I mean, that's not even touching the quarterback conversation. I think that they'll be looking up to trade up to fix quarterback, but I don't think they're doing that in free agency in any way. So you giving out a lot of options for them along the offensive line to make some improvements does, to me, aid their flexibility to go get a pass catcher rather than the other way around. I think there's a lot of wide receivers that hit free agency. Obviously, this. There's some guys that you can get even in the top tier that might be available because it feels like that's the case every year. But for the Giants, offensive line, I agree with you, and just listening to you, I think that makes the most sense. Hitting offensive line in free agency and then going after a premium pass catcher potentially at number 6. I feel like that's a good way to go for them. What about the Washington Commanders? Rounding out this division, a lot of unknown, right? You talked about how Dallas is, they don't really spend a lot in free agency. You talked about some tendencies with both the Giants and the Eagles. Completely new look Washington Commanders team, new ownership, new general manager, new head coach. And we might be able to get some nuggets from what Dan Quinn has done in the past back when he was with Atlanta, but it's just totally different there. So what's Washington's flexibility? What do you think they're going to look towards the free agency? And then obviously we'll go into draft talk with them too.
So this is why I wanted to start here. Here's our first soundbite of the pod. If I had to place a bet, if you and I were back in Vegas, crushing the tables as we both totally did.
Mentally, I am. Mentally, we're still there.
Yeah, mentally we're still there, and neither of us lost a bet the whole weekend.
No, of course not.
I would say the Commanders spend the most money of any team in the NFL in free agency this offseason. So
okay, wow.
They basically set out the last 2 years. I think you get an element of new owner syndrome, where like Josh Harris comes in, he wants to win right away. He wants to have an exciting football team. They're trying to build a new stadium, get some old fans back, and get them excited. I think they attack edge rusher, and you mentioned Dan Quinn. I think he wants to have new guys to replace Montez Sweat and Chase Young, whether it's the top of the market like a Danielle Hunter veteran. I think a Bryce Huff could make a lot of sense as a just pure pass rusher alongside those interior guys. I'm sure he'll be a top target of Washington. Maybe a little bit in the secondary as well, because they have Cam Curl and Kendall Fuller, both as pending free agents. But they obviously did use, top-end draft capital there. But long answer short, I think Dan Quinn is going to try to build his defense pretty quickly in free agency, and then maybe allow themselves to draft more of, hey, let's draft, offensive line and Drake May or Jaden Daniels and build around, a young nucleus on offense.
Man, that's I think a great game plan for them, because this is a team that not only has a lot to spend, like you mentioned. If you go a little bit further than the top 100, because they have pick 103 in the fourth round, they have 6 picks in the top 103 this year in the draft, and so this is going to be a new look Washington Commanders team. And I like how you kind of painted the picture of them going defense first in free agency, supplementing a lot of those needs, and then we assume it's going to be quarterback at number 2, and then continuing to build out that offense, get skill position players, get offensive linemen. They've got 2 second-round picks, a third-round pick, actually 2 third-round picks, and then that early fourth-round pick as well. So a lot of different options for them. But yeah, I do agree with you. I think that I often look at pick 36 and pick 40, and I go defensive line with one of them, just because the way that the roster looks right now, you can't do a Washington Commanders mock draft and get past those 3 picks there and not have an edge rusher go. Fans will be like, oh, okay, I guess I'm rushing the passer this year. And so you got to kind of wait for free agency a little bit. But if they're able to at least beef that up a bit, I think it will be at least 2 out of those 3 picks will be offense. And I think it'll obviously be quarterback at the top, and probably a trench player is the other one. If it's all 3, then you could throw in wide receiver or tight end as well. I think Jatavian Sanders is an option for them at the top of the second round for the tight end spot. So just throwing that out as a little nugget there. All right, let's go to the next division here. Let's go to, what'd you say, the North? North is next?
The North.
Let's do the Detroit Lions. We'll go to Detroit Lions first. Obviously took a big step in the right direction this past season, very close to a Super Bowl berth. Where's this team stand? What have we learned about Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell about what they do in free agency? Obviously, he had a home run in the draft, especially last year with what they were able to get in the return on investment. But it feels like the last couple of years they've been drafting really, really well. They've got an emphasis there. But what do you think they're going to do in free agency this year?
Yeah, they're still healthy on the books. They were super patient when they came in. They really tried to kind of clear everything out. They had some veteran players like Jamie Collins and a couple guys that stuck around, but they really tried to just get super, super young, let those guys play and play through growing pains and learn. And like you're talking about, it has paid off for the most part for a lot of the foundational pieces of this offense. So I think trenches for them is going to be, if they do spend, it'll be trenches on both sides of the ball. Both of their guards from this past year, and Jonah Jackson and Graham Glasgow, are pending free agents. Obviously, Glasgow kind of a veteran at this point, and Jackson, the young piece that some people think is going to get a monster deal. I'm a little bit lower on him than others, but like Matt Bowen, who does great work at ESPN, and others are huge, huge fans. I see the athleticism on tape. I don't know. We don't have to get into the weeds of it, but
do you think is the Jackson, because I've seen him just as a free agency guy for a lot of other teams, like, are you a little bit lower on him play wise, or are you you're saying you're a little bit lower on him like free agency projection wise?
No, play wise, and that's why my projection is lower, right? Like,
okay, I got you.
If I loved his tape, he would probably have one of the highest projections, on the board. It is a loaded guard class. I mentioned, like Robert Hunt and Kevin Dotson, but yeah, I don't know. I see him like narrow pass sets that kind of lets him get pushed over a little bit. He kind of trips over himself at times, and I don't know. He's a good player, and he's a mauler in the run game, no question about it. But
no, you clearly hate him.
Yeah, I hate his
I mean,
guts.
yeah. I mean, clearly, you think he's an AFL player, so
Yeah,
that's
UFL. He's
Yo,
better than
sorry,
that.
yeah. R.I.P. the AFL.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, arena, he'd be causing problems in the arena. Yeah, no. So, like, I think they either go there or, again, continue to add alongside Aiden Hutchinson and Aleem McNeil in the trenches. And, of course, DBs. They go out and sign Chauncey Gunnar-Johnson, basically misses almost the entire season. Same with Emmanuel Mosley, which was tough because I think if those two guys play, I think that secondary is not quite as bad as we kind of made it out to be. So I think they're a draft and develop franchise. I do think we'll see a little bit of Brett Holmes, though, and his end of season press conference was awesome. But, like, there's not always a philosophy for the sake of a philosophy. A lot of times it's like understanding the context of your roster. This team right now, if it aligns well with a marquee free agent, like, they should strike. They're a really good football team. They're a clear-cut top 5 team in the NFC. It's not a good conference. Like, abandon your precedents at times, and I think this offseason could be one of them.
Do they have the funds to, like, go after one of the, like, because I agree, Mosley would have been great if he doesn't get hurt. I really like that addition for them. But, I look at corner, I look at edge, right? Those are the top two needs that we continuously mock for the Lions with either their second round pick or their first round pick. Do they have the funds to, like you said, go make a splash in that area? Like, all right, signing one guy here or there, that's fine. But it sounds like what you're talking about is like, hey, they're in a winning window. Like, go after it. Like, put your pedal to the metal. Sell out a little bit and go for this Super Bowl. There are some pass rushers, some really good ones that could be available. Josh Allen, maybe. I mean, he's probably not getting out of Jacksonville. Brian Burns' situation's kind of up in the air, but it's like, do they even have the funds to go potentially make a major splash like that at edge rusher or corner? Or is that going to be something they kind of got to prioritize in the draft?
I think they can. I mean, they got to extend Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and get ready for Panay and Aiden. But I think they can. Like, for example, I put in an article this week with 4 trades. It's a different context, but like Khalil Mack, like to the Lions, like I love the idea. Like,
ooh, nice.
Yeah. Like, make a splash like that where it's like, yeah, we're going to add we're not going to go like, Josh Allen, I think, is getting like a bag and a half.
Yeah.
And like you said, probably getting tagged, not going anywhere anyway. But like that next tier, like Danielle Hunter, like steal a guy from your own division who has shown to have a very, very high floor play against the run and the pass. Like stuff like that. Like I'd be in those markets if I'm them. And I get why they normally aren't. But right now, and I'm not a window chaser per se, but they're in one. It's undeniable they're in one right now.
What about the Packers? Packers are next. Big youth movement on this team. I think certainly down the stretch played well than a lot of other people believe that they were going to, especially when you don't have David Bakhtiari. You have a super young receiving core, an even younger tight end group that you're leaning on. A.J. Dillon was not effective for you. Aaron Jones was hurt. You're starting Jordan Love for the first time. You've got a lot of young pieces on defense. It feels like this is a really young team. So does that mean they're going to continue that youth movement? Or do you think it's going to mean, hey, it's time to get some more veterans within this group? Which way do you think the Packers are going to go?
I think so. They really don't spend a ton, although Gutekunst has in the past. Like the Smith brothers were kind of deviating from his norm, Adrian Amos. And I think they got to go safety. Like, I don't think they can bring in what they had this past year. It was borderline untenable. And Darnell Savage is a pending free agent. They've said they like him, want to bring him back. Now I'm being mean. I don't really know why they feel that way, but they do. I don't know. When I watch him against the run, it's like he doesn't even want to make the tackle. He's good. He's rangy. He's got good ball skills. But and maybe the switch to Joe Barry or away from Joe Barry could help. But
right.
But yeah, like I think like having a safety that can come out of the box and make plays and can make splashes in the line and scare opposing offenses like. They were not striking fear in the eyes and hearts of their opponents up the middle this year, and I think they could use that element.
Yeah, that makes sense. Who's a safety that they might be able to go get? Is there somebody on the market that? I mean, don't say Antoine Winfield Jr. He's not going anywhere. Don't you dare. Don't let the words come out of your mouth. I'll correct you or I'll mute you or I'll tell Ryan to just get you off the podcast entirely if you say Antoine Winfield Jr. But I don't know. Like, is there a big splash to say? Because I totally agree. When we mock guys to the Packers, people talk about the safety need being more than the corner need, and I get that. That's why Cooper DeJean sometimes a pick there. But it's more of just, hey, we'll address this need here. I don't know if people believe that Tyler Newman from Minnesota, who I think is safety one in this class, is worth that back end of the first round pick. But the Packers have 2 second round picks. I think one is 41 and the other one's at 58. I think safety could be in play there for them. yeah, like, is there a safety that they could supplement? Maybe it is just bringing Savage back, but maybe it is going out and signing somebody else.
The big splash would be Xavier McKinney for me from New York, who I think would be interesting. Who just has good ball skills, good range on the back end, and I think would just help the rest of the secondary to where if he's cheating to a side, I think quarterbacks are going to avoid throwing on that side of the field. He also can come down and make plays. Not the most physical player in the world, but can come to the line of scrimmage and play nickel a little bit and is a good coverage player, good lateral agility. So he'd be exciting to me. Just add an element to kind of tip the scales for that defense. And I know they've spent like 10 first-round picks in a row there, but they got to get the results.
Any idea what they might do with Runyon? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot there, but that's the other position that it feels like you're either drafting Cooper DeJean if he makes it down to the Packers pick, or you're just going offensive lineman. And a lot of times it's one of these hybrid offensive tackles that they're going to push inside, like a Troy Fountain, a Graham Barton, a Jordan Morgan, like somebody like that they would be able to move inside. And, if Runyon's there, maybe that's a little bit less likely, but if he's not, certainly that becomes more pressing at that point.
Yeah, the Fontenot pick I would love from Washington. I think he'd be a great fit. I could see them letting him go. He's solid. He's a good pass protector, but I don't think he's a good mover at the second level, which they obviously want for their run scheme. We saw him at the Combine. We noted on the Steven Stamps show he had a good body. That's a whole separate conversation. Out of context, that's great. Anyway,
don't worry. Ryan will clip that for the open of the show, the cold open of the show. Don't worry.
Exactly. No, I think they move on. So I love that mock. Like when I do mocks for them, I'll be doing stuff. It's the exact same thing. Position flex, college tackles that kick inside the guard type players is exactly who I'll pick for them.
Minnesota. Again, feels like, they're still turning the page in a lot of ways. I feel like on most of that roster, feels like it'd be a much stronger youth movement for that team, but now all of a sudden, do they need better results than what we've seen over the last couple of years? I don't think Kevin O'Connell is in trouble at all, but some of the picks that Kwesi Adafo-Mensah has had haven't worked out, and have had a lot of younger guys kind of fill in there. But just what do you think about Minnesota's overall situation? Do you think they're going to be big buyers at the in free agency, or do you think it's going to be more of that draft youth movement?
I think they're going to have to a degree. I think they're going to have to invest in that defensive line. Whether it's bringing back Danielle Hunter, obviously is a good starting point. But you look at the defensive line, like DJ Wanham, who played 900 snaps for them, also a free agent. They tried to make that kind of one-year flyer splash, the one-year $10 million deal for Marcus Davenport. He barely played.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate. He's a good football player, but. And then that interior of the defensive line is just not a good enough unit right now to really be, good against the run, to enable them to not blitz on 60% of dropbacks or 60% of snaps. Like they had to do that. They had no choice. So I think that'll be interesting. The interior of the defensive line for me, I think will be very, very interesting, in particular for Minnesota, under the assumption that maybe they just go ahead and bring back Danielle Hunter. I'm keeping an eye on them, maybe trying to take a one-year flyer on like a DJ Reader coming off his injury, or even taking a gamble and giving him a multi-year deal. I think Jonathan Greenard's really interesting from the Houston Texans, a very good run defender that showed this year more promise as a pass rusher. Not a guy who's going to win, but like a guy who, if you manufacture pressure for, is a good straight line athlete and a good closer, which was what Brian Flores was doing. Guys like that, I think would be very, very fascinating. So I guess he was an edge rusher, but yeah, those interior guys, Sheldon Rankins may bring him in, Tyre Tart, who I can't quit from Tennessee. Like those type of players, I think are interesting.
Yeah, man, you're just looking at the Minnesota depth chart right now and how many other pending free agents you have. A lot of players in the box, linebacker level, edge rushers, interior defensive linemen. A lot of these guys are up, and you figure some of them will be back. But it makes a lot of sense why, yes, we think Minnesota is going to be one of those teams that's aggressive for a quarterback in the first round, currently sitting at 11. But if they're not, it's a very popular Jerzon Newton, Byron Murphy the second spot, which would be hilarious if they drafted Byron Murphy, because they would have Byron Murphy Jr., the corner, and then they would also have Byron Murphy the second on their defensive line.
We need that now.
So
yeah. I'm mocking that every time. It's irresponsible not to.
Connor, so Connor and I do a segment during the season where we will kind of like shout out a player who's under the radar, somebody who's really flashing during the college football season. And I think it was like in an October episode, I watched a game of Byron Murphy the second from Texas. And I was like, holy shit. Like, this dude was out of his mind. And so I shouted him out on the podcast. And just at it, like I wasn't thinking, and I was like, Byron Murphy, the second from Texas, and I have no idea if he's related to Byron Murphy, who plays in Minnesota. And Connor just like quickly just goes like, yeah, they're related. And I was like, oh, are they? And Connor's like, no, you idiot. What do you think their parents named them Byron Murphy and Byron Murphy?
And one's junior, one's the second. Yeah, so they have different middle names. That's it. They just have the same guy, just different middle names.
Oh, I think of that. I think of that clip every single time I say the name Byron Murphy II. I think of that clip.
Well, we need it now.
This actually could happen. So it might be my greatest nightmare here coming alive if this happens here. We'll round out the division with your Chicago Bears. A lot of flexibility on this team. Obviously, what do you do with Justin Fields? What are you doing at number one overall? This is a team that I feel like has spent a good amount over the last couple of years, but not recklessly. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know. What do you think about Chicago, where they're currently sitting, where it's kind of, I don't want to say a do or die year, but you went in the right direction in a lot of ways. You got to keep going in the right direction. Like, this cannot be a stalemate kind of a thing, or else I think jobs, maybe you're talking about them potentially getting lost here. So what do you do in free agency if you're Chicago, knowing you've got a lot of draft ammo as well?
Yeah, I think they'll spend a little bit. I think the big thing for them will be center. I think they will be adding one of the many great centers in this class. They just couldn't, it was untenable last year what they had. And also when you're probably ushering in a new quarterback, if you can bring in a veteran center, maybe that has familiarity with this system, and Shane Waldron, I think that just helps that transition and ease that for the young quarterback. So I expect that to happen, no doubt. There happen to be two centers that have played for Waldron, in Evan Brown and Coleman Shelton. There's also Aaron Brewer in Tennessee, who makes sense. It's kind of a scheme fit. So that's one spot. And then I do think they are going to take a stab at some edge rushers for opposite of Montez Sweat. Because, I've talked about this, like 9 might be a little rich for a Dallas Turner or Jared Verse or Laiatu Latu or whoever. Also, I don't know how many of those guys they view as fits because they want these big, big defensive ends. But that makes me think, like, I know Chase Young didn't have a great playoffs. He did have a good Super Bowl. Maybe you just recreate the Commanders' edge group in Chicago. I don't know if you don't sleep on it. That's interesting. Danielle Hunter, if they want to go older, but they like to go young. But I think anyway. And then the interior too. And I just mentioned a bunch of names, but interior defensive line as well. I think they will explore those contracts. Again, do you go veteran like a DeQuan Jones, good interior pass rusher? When healthy, do you go younger and try to kind of just continue to stay young? I think they're going to, just like Detroit, they're going to, in a different way, but they're going to be open to now saying, all right, we're not going to just stick to our principles. Like you said, there's expectations now. Even the rookie quarterback, they can't be bad. They have to win like 7-8 games or be very competitive. I think next season.
Yeah, I think that context is really good because we think of the Bears having a lot of draft ammo, and they do. Like I said, they got pick number 1 and pick number 9. But then after that, because of the Montez Sweat trade, they don't pick until 75 in the 3rd round. So you look at a situation where if they don't go out and get an edge rusher, and let's say they really would like to get out of the 1st round with one of them, I think Verse makes a ton of sense for them as the more heavy-handed 4-3 defensive end, a guy who plays with a ton of power, like I said, that fits what Matt Eberflus wants to do. Do you sit there at 9? Let's say the wide receivers are off the board. Let's say we're in a reality where Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Marvin Harrison Jr., they're all off the board. Do you trade back to, 14 with the Saints, 15 with the Colts, like whatever it is, one of those teams that wants a quarterback, although I think a quarterback's probably going to be off the board that they would want at that point. But do you trade back? Do you try to get one of those 2nd rounders to give you a little bit more spread out draft ammo in hopes of drafting Verse? Or maybe you just stick at 9 and draft Verse, but that kind of paints an interesting picture of what Chicago could possibly bring to the table. We're going to get to our next division, but before we do that, if you got a family out there, you need to get them term life insurance to protect them. It's plain and simple. It's one of the smartest financial decisions that you can make, and the start of the new year is the perfect time to get it done so you guys can focus on whatever else 2024 has in store for you. Fabric was designed by parents for parents to help you get high-quality, surprisingly affordable term life insurance policies in less than 10 minutes. Fabric was designed to have flexible policies that'll fit whatever your family's budget is, like quality policies such as $1 million coverage for less than $1 a day. You can get your personalized quote in just minutes and apply whenever it is convenient for you, all online and to your schedule. You go from start to covered in less than 10 minutes with no health exam required. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family today. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/stock exchange. That's meetfabric.com/stock exchange. MEET fabric.com/stock exchange. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. If you type in meatfabric.com, it just takes you to Brad Spielberger's free agency tool ranking. So that's what happens. It just redirects right over there if you go MEAT, Meat Fabric.
Trev, if they have viruses in their computer from these, they can't access our articles if they're trying to battle with malware out here. So be careful with your jokes.
We're not responsible for we've said for a long time, if you just go to meatfabric.com, it just redirects you to the Stock Exchange YouTube channel.
We should buy that domain.
Yeah.
From whichever roast beef porno crossover site is out there. We should get into the market.
No, it just takes you to Arby's website. Okay, sorry. Moving on to the next division. We're going to go straight to the NFC South because directionally that's how it goes. Start with the Buccaneers. Start with the NFC South division champs once again, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There's a lot of things that could happen in free agency with this team. Obviously, they've got some big names up. Levante David, Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans. What do you do with Antoine Winfield Jr.? Got to think about Tristan Wirfs. What do you think ultimately happens with this team, though? Because they have some guys that they could move on from as well, to give them a little bit of flexibility, knowing that they've got to shell out a good chunk of change now that Mayfield actually played well. What do you think the Bucs do here? And then what targets that leaves them for the back end of the first round when it comes to draft?
Yeah, shout out the Bucs. $80 million dead cap last year, most in the NFL. $200,000 as of today, the least in the NFL heading into 2024. Yeah,
Mike Greenberg goaded. Greenberg goaded.
And they won the division, beat the Philadelphia Eagles in a playoff game. I mean, you can't beat it. So, yeah, you're going to get Baker, and I think Baker's looking at like 3 years, 90, maybe high side 3 years, 100. And maybe I'm still too bearish on that, but we'll see. I think we've talked about like maybe takes a little bit less because he wants to go to an organization he loves. Liam Cohen was clearly a Baker Mayfield hire, so he's going to be there, as you've made it very clear. Like you've like guarded off the Baker Mayfield. You're like, no, he'll be there. He's a Buccaneer for life. Anyway. I think they'll spend a little, but I think they are, again, a team that just wants to draft and develop. And they, because of all the spending they did to try to add to the Tom Brady run, like they're not averse to doing it. But they've also recently like had some misses, some injuries, like Russell Gage types, and you're now working through the Ryan Jensen situation, which wasn't a free agent. I guess it was, I think. But anyway, I think they are going to be patient and pick their spots. I think for them, off-ball linebacker you mentioned, you have both Levante David and Devin White pending free agents. I think we both do not expect Devin White to be back, so I think that'll be an interesting spot. And then corner, if they move on from Carlton Davis, maybe they make a minor splash there. They've had some injury issues with both of their guys and him and Jamel Dean. So, yeah, I think it's more like, kind of non-premium positions and mid-tier market players, particularly on defense. Because the offense, the line's getting better. We've seen growth from Cody Mauch and Luka Decky and all those young guys. So, yeah, just kind of you're filling out your roster at like linebacker, safety, corner, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm praying that Levante David doesn't – because I feel like Levante David can get more money elsewhere, not in Tampa Bay. But it would – eternally pain me to see him wearing another team's jersey. So I really do not hope that happens. The same with Mike Evans, obviously. Corner is very interesting for this team because I agree. I don't think Carlton Davis or Jamel Dean played very well this past year, and you could move on from them. But those are I feel like those are like Todd Bowles guys. So the fact that Todd Bowles is back, I don't think they're going to move on from him. I continue to look at edge rusher as the area where I feel they're going to hone in on the most when it comes to the first round. But I'm also not I'm not totally off on them going offensive lineman if the right guy is available. Like I put this in my most recent mock draft. Like I think Cody Barton's a Jason Light type of player. And I think that if Cody Barton's available for them at the back end of the first round, I think that they could go that direction. So those are a couple names there. Obviously a corner as well, like Ennis Rakestraw Jr. I think would be perfect for this team. But do they go that way? I don't know. It feels like they're just going to kind of roll into next year with Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis, and then let next year really be the difference at corner, seeing what direction they're going to go. So
no, I think it's fair. You think they're scared at all because of Joe Tryanchenko and Logan Hall of just like, hey, we've tried that like late first, early second, D lineman. It's not really like, let's just go, I don't know, a different position or a different philosophy, or you got to just keep swinging.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to keep swinging, but there's no doubt that those guys have not impacted the game the way that they've needed to. Anthony Miller as well was a later draft pick, but it's like he was kind of touted as somebody who could really help out the pass rush rotation. I don't think that he has, or sorry, Anthony Nelson. Sorry, Anthony Nelson. So I don't know. They obviously like Yaya Diaby. Marquise Watts actually was really nice for them in the preseason as a nice depth player. So I don't think they're going to shy away from it, even though they're at the back end of the first round when it comes to edge rusher. But we'll see. I do think it's going to be trenches either way. I think that's more likely than corner. Anyways, let's go to the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons made a lot of changes this offseason, right? Fired Arthur Smith basically 60 seconds after midnight when they had the ability to call it a Black Monday hire or a firing. They went and they did that. Hire Raheem Morris as their head coach. He's going to be running the defense, or he's going to be in charge of the defense, as we know from a defensive background. Hire Zach Robinson as the offense coordinator. The quarterback position is straight up not good enough. And when you look at free agency, we already kind of went over the fact that we don't think Baker Mayfield's getting out of Tampa. Kirk Cousins is out there. Justin Fields is out there for trade. But like, first and foremost, before we get into the rest of the Falcons, like what do you think is most plausible for them? Do you think they're going to be a major suitor for Kirk Cousins? Are there any other quarterbacks that are out there that they could take a chance on? Because this team just cannot go into next year with Desmond Ridder as their starter.
I think they are going to be the main contender with Minnesota for Kirk Cousins services. You have Zach Robinson, who came over with Raheem Morris, obviously worked with Kevin O'Connell for a while, knows probably that Kevin O'Connell likes Kirk Cousins quite a bit, can run an offense, can get the ball out quickly and accurately to all three levels of the field. You have the young weapons. You have a very good offensive line, so you don't have to worry. With Kirk, like you want a good interior in particular, which Minnesota has kind of never had, and Atlanta really does, which is helpful with the emergence of Bergeron, obviously Chris Lindstrom, one of the best guards in the NFL. So I think they are the big Kirk Cousins spot, and that obviously dictates everything. If they do that, they probably don't make a whole lot of other moves. If they don't go the Kirk Cousins route, I think they are going to be very in on the edge rushers. They just have not had a good edge rush in so long. And once Grady Jarrett gets healthy and you have him and Onyemata, I think if you add in a good edge rusher, that it takes the entire D-line a whole another step. So, we've thrown out a bunch of names, but a lot of the guys you mentioned already would be good fits. I think for them, I'm trying to think. I guess Ryan Nielsen left, and now it's Raheem Morris. What's Raheem Morris's philosophy? I know he didn't really run it with the Rams, so I guess his philosophy is catering a defense to his players, but yeah, I could see him going after a guy like Dorrance Armstrong in Dallas, like a good, kind of a cheap version of a Bryce Huff. Like he's a very good pure pass rusher, good long arm move, good on a good unit, which obviously he had in Dallas. Like I think
I'd like Bryce Huff as well for this team.
Yeah, for sure.
I think he would be an option for them.
Yeah.
We talk about first round. They're either doing something with a quarterback or they're drafting an edge rusher essentially. And I think that you bringing it up this way means that whatever they do in the first round is going to supplement whatever they weren't able to do in free agency. If they weren't able to get a quarterback, they're going to be as aggressive as possible to try to go get a quarterback. If they didn't get an edge rusher and they did get a quarterback, then obviously number 8, you're talking about probably taking edge one off the board, whether it's Jared Verse, whether it's Dallas Turner, and maybe Latu, although I've said before on this podcast, I don't think the NFL is going to be as high on Latu just because I don't think he's going to test as well. He's not going to measure in as well. So it sounds like that's what the path is for Atlanta. What about New Orleans? New Orleans is always a team that I feel like I never know what's going on with them because the salary cap feels like it doesn't exist for them. It feels like they just, make magic out of it. They seem to be committed to Derek Carr at least for another year, maybe another 2, depending on how they can get flexible with his contract. But just overall, it felt like this should have been the year that the Saints absolutely won the division. Going into the year, on paper, the resources that they had allocated to the team, where they were, it felt like they should have. They don't. It's incredibly disappointing for them. Where do they go from here in free agency?
Yeah, no, they're not winning the division. With I think they had our easiest schedule in all of PFF too.
They did.
Real, like Marcus May instead of Marcus Williams, Peyton Turner instead of Trey Hendrickson. Like the reason they missed playoffs 3 years in a row has a little something to do with the fact they can't retain good players. So, and of course they could if they wanted to, but they're making more tough decisions. So they always splash here and there. Like they'll randomly add a Tyrann Mathieu or a Marcus May or what have you. Last year it was like Keelan Saunders and Nathan Shepard on the interior. I think more of that, maybe a little bit more, juice on the interior of that defensive line. Brian Bresee, he showed flashes at times, I feel like, but he's still kind of a rotational piece as of right now. I could see more additions on the defensive line because Carl Granderson, very good player, might be the best edge now on the team. With all due respect to the legend Cam Jordan, had a very down year this past season, and maybe that's playing through injury or something like that. But I could see them continue to pour resource on the defensive line because it just was not a good enough unit this past year. I'm surprised their defense held up as well as it did, but I think it was mainly because of growth, on the back end from Alontae Taylor and Paulson Adebo and more Pete Werner at linebacker. Like that D line is not what it once was, and it was a great unit for a long time.
So Andres Pete is also a free agent on the offensive line, and Trevor Penning has been bad. Do you think that they look tackle at all? Because there's also some rumors about what Ryan Ramczyk had to go through with his knee just to play every single week. And he's getting a little bit up there in age and he's a great right tackle. But now you're in a situation where, okay, you're losing your flexible interior / tackle player in Andres Pete, or you might. Trevor Penning has not been good. And now all of a sudden, if Ryan Ramczyk is like, hey, I gotta hang it up, you're screwed at that point. So do you think that they're going to proactively look at offensive tackle as well? Because that, to me, the Saints draft pick in the first round, when it comes to primary needs, always seems to be is either tackle or edge rusher for me. What do you think?
And I think when you mentioned earlier, trade with the Bears maybe, and then why would they do that? They do that if Olu Fashanu was sitting there at 9. I think they would do something like that. If not, do you think that they're, would they find a spot for, I don't know, like a Fuaga or something like that in the, I don't know. I feel like to me, he's more of a either like zone scheme or maybe play him at guard in a gap scheme. And they do move guys around. Obviously, they're very flexible there. But yeah, I think tackle in the first round for them is like a very, very likely pick. Whoever happens to be there at 14, or again, if tackle 2 is available around pick 8, 9, 10, I think they'll pounce.
Okay, all right. Speaking of pounce, Carolina Panthers, last team in this division. See what it did there.
Fabric. Yeah.
See what yeah, just go to meetpanthers.com, MEAT Panthers.com.
Don't go to meetcougars.com.
Dude.
Yeah, whole separate idea there. Well, or you can. It's up to you.
Yeah, or you can. It's up to you.
Yeah.
Just change the browser to private first. Okay, so Carolina obviously does not have their first round pick, which is quite the bummer because it's number 1 overall. This team was, I'm looking at the PFF numbers right in front of me here. Cheeks last year, and so it was tough to watch in a lot of ways. You think you still have the quarterback position, you hope, figured out by getting Bryce Young in there. A lot of changes to this coaching staff. I think it's going to be a major philosophical change in a lot of ways. Tepper himself as an owner is certainly still learning what works, what doesn't. What do we do here, though? Because this is, you've said this before, Tepper's one of the richest, he's not just rich, he's one of the richest owners in the NFL. So he does not like to lose. It's very evident after this season with the things that happened in Carolina. He is not okay with losing. So is this a team that, do they have the salary cap? Do they have the ability? And do you think they're going to be aggressive in attacking a lot of needs that they have in free agency?
Yeah, it's not as clean as you'd like their books, but I think they will. You won't like this one, but I do think they're a team where Tepper might say, hey, Dave, call your friend Mike Evans and just tell him we'll pay him more than anybody else. yeah, he could go chase a ring with, Aaron Rodgers in New York or whatever. He could also get a deal that no one else.
Tampa, yeah, chase the ring in Tampa.
Chase the ring with
yeah.
Baker, right.
Yeah,
The house that Baker built down in Tampa, the Bake Boat. Anyway, Bake Boat, yeah. Yes, that's Bake. I think that's Tantillo's riverboat in Alabama.
Yes, that's Bake.
But anyway.
Oh, my God.
We're good about trade secret.
Yeah, meatbaker.com, MEAT, baker.com.
That's probably good. It's probably cupcakes and croissants. But yeah, so I think that's the one receiver where they're like, we have Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo. Chark's going to be a free agent. Obviously, wasn't a really solution for them. Like a Marquise Brown, maybe offer him more than most people want to offer. And I think it makes sense, honestly. Just get more receivers. My hot take for them is people are going to say offensive line. I think we're going to see, to a lesser extent, but I think we're going to see the same effect that happened in Indianapolis when Reich was there. The entire Colts O-line played worse, and then he left. And this year it was like, oh, turns out that Braden Smith and Quentin Nelson are studs again, and Ryan Kelly. Maybe he just took a scheme that made things easier for them. I think the same thing happens where I liked rookie Ike Ekwonu. I've always liked Taylor Moton. And then Austin Corbett gets healthy, Bradley Bozeman at center, yada, yada. So receiver and free agency, I think they'll be in the mix for all those names because they're not good enough.
Right. And that's always where we go with pick 33, right? It's just nowhere else. Pick 33. First pick and they could absolutely do both. Yeah, there's no question about it. There's nobody on that roster right now, like you said, that screams, I'm guaranteed to get targets next year from the receiving room. And so that makes a lot of sense. And obviously you get to, they got a lot of, how much retention do you think is happening on the defensive side, right? Brian Burns is a free agent. Frankie Louvu is a free agent.
Yeah.
You got Jeremy Chin. You got CJ Henderson. You got Cam Gruder-Hill.
GBH, my sweetheart. What a guy.
Yeah, you got so many of these players who are unrestricted free agents. With so much turnover that we had from the coaching staff, do you expect a lot of turnover on defense as well? Or, I don't know. Are they going to spend a lot of money to try to bring a lot of these guys back?
It's a good question. They kept Avero. Obviously didn't see a spot for Chin, so I think Jeremy Chin's probably on the way out. Brian Burns
feels like it.
Yeah, I think they'll find a way to get it done. I could see a tag and trade, I suppose, but I think they'll find a way. And Louvu, interesting too. I can see them moving on, but Shaq Thompson, I think, is kind of on the way out now. Didn't he get hurt and he was already kind of
I believe so.
Yeah, I guess Sam Franklin's a solid player. I know he's a safety linebacker hybrid, but he's a decent off-ball player. I don't know. I don't get why Louvu wouldn't be a priority for them, but I feel like he would have been an obvious early extension candidate. And maybe they just weren't doing business because people were getting fired and they were trying to figure everything out. But anyway, I think we'll see some decent turnover. I just feel like they will address that more so in the draft. I think if they're going to spend, it's just we're doing everything we can to make Bryce Young's life easier starting on March 13th.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That part of it makes sense. Everybody out there watching and listening, if you want to get in on some of the PFF stats that we have, the Unlocked Mock Draft Simulator, getting everything when it comes to the free agency tool that Brad is developing, a lot of the information he's talking about to you here, you can find on the free agency tool over at pff.com. You can get yourself a PFF subscription with the promo code 30MDS, and it'll get you 30% off any annual subscription over at pff.com. So if you don't have one, now's a really good time to get it. The offseason, you're learning a lot. You can keep track of a lot. Obviously, the Mock Draft Simulator, if you're listening to this podcast, is a great tool for you to have. So get 30% off if you don't have one, 30MDS over at pff.com. All right, last division. Let's start off with the San Francisco 49ers. What is this team going to do in free agency, if anything at all? They made some big splashes, right? You go out and you trade for Chase Young, but still, man, this team's got 4 picks in the top 100, 5 picks in the top 125 because they got Dallas's pick as well. So this, and then a crap ton, because I'm using the metric system here, a crap ton of day 3 picks. What's San Francisco doing? Where are they right now?
Yeah, it's tough because you got to pay Brandon Ayuk, and I know there's already been some cryptic posts on Twitter or Instagram or whatever social media site about whether he'll be there or not. But I think he's going to get more than Deebo Samuel on his own team. So you're talking a top 5 paid wide receiver in the NFL on top of, I think Deebo is 7th or 8th right now or whatever in that range. So that'll be tough. Then you got Chase Young, like you said, I don't think they buy into the sunk cost. I think if they lose them, they'll get a 4th-round comp pick. They traded a 3rd-round comp pick to get him. So in their mind, it's like, all right, whatever. We moved down around in the compensatory round. We tried to chase a ring. He actually was good in the Super Bowl, against Donovan Smith. But anyway, so I don't think they spend much in free agency. The only spot I would see is also under the radar story that was funny. So John Feliciano had to step in this year and be the starting right guard. Spencer Burford for them had our lowest pass blocking grade in the entire NFL. A recent, I want to say 4th-round pick at right guard. Feliciano gets hurt, and Burford stepped in and did not play particularly well, but it's obviously tough to step in the middle of a Super Bowl against the Chiefs interior with Chris Jones. Right. Anyway, I said it's funny because they were like, Feliciano totally threw him under the bus on Twitter, and then Burford was like, bro, I woke up to like a tweet of you like saying I like blew the game. It was just like, I didn't see.
Wait, what happened?
Oh, Feliciano, someone tweeted like, who's assigned, like who screwed up this play here? And Feliciano was like, well, if the lineman who was supposed to take this guy took the player he was supposed to take, then like Brock would have had time. And like 7 hours later, you just see the response like, damn, bro, woke up to this. Yeah, underrated, hilarious. Anyway, so all of that to say, that beautiful anecdote.
Damn, that's rough.
Yeah, it's rough. Yeah, they just like be well, brother. Like, yeah, have a good one. It was classic. It was classic. Like they didn't pivot into classic. Just like, hey, nothing but greatness ahead for you, my guy. Like, all right, you guys will like each other. Move on. So it was awesome. It was awesome. It was classic. It was classic. Like, look, your girl just broke up with you and you fired off some subtweets at 2 a.m. because you just lost the big game. Like, we get it. Like, we're all human. So yeah, Feliciano was in his field.
So Feliciano was saying that about Burford, right?
Yeah, but it was a clip of. I think people were throwing Colton McKivitz under the bus, but McKivitz clearly was doing a slide protection, going to the outside, waiting for someone to come, and so a guy beat kind of the B gap on that side. He didn't say Burford's name, but he basically was like, it's not McKivitz's fault, it's the right guard's fault. And Burford was just like, damn, my guy.
That is rough. That's tough.
Rough. It was rough.
Okay.
So interior offensive line. This is not just to pat myself on the back. I'm not saying it in that way. I'm actually trying to pat Kyle Shanahan on the back. I pointed out how their offensive line on the interior was a problem like every week for like 15 weeks in a row, and it just never mattered because Kyle Shanahan's a wizard. It was maybe low key the biggest issue they had in that Super Bowl was Bags hitting nickel pressure and stuff, and like Trent would hold up on an island. McKivitz actually thought played okay, and the interior was just getting destroyed. And like they were running into each other on like poles and stuff. So anyway, I think that could be a spot for them as interior offensive line. I've mentioned the names already, but a lot of good, zone blocking, good movers available.
What about the Cardinals? Rebuilding team, first year general manager Monty Ossenfort, first year head coach and Jonathan Gannon. I think team played. Look, I know the win total wasn't there, but a lot more competitively than we thought that they were going to. And they think that's a sign of some of the young guys that they brought in from last year's draft. Ossenfort clearly prioritizing that with how he was able to move up and down the draft, get an extra first-round pick for this year. Is this a team that you could still see spending a lot of money in free agency, or are they still in the phase where it's like, we're just big youth movement here on this team? What do you think?
I think they're going to load up. I think to a degree they're going to try to do both. But it's like I think last year it was a youth movement for sure, and they played all those guys. But also, hey, Kyler Murray's hurt year, so let's just kind of punt it and see what happens. But now it's like, hey, all right, we have a healthy Kyler Murray. We have Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors probably stepping into this offense. I think defensive line is where they're going to make a splash. Like, I think they'll be – look at Gannon. He came from Philadelphia before they was in Minnesota, and those Minnesota teams were like Linval Joseph, Everson Griffin, like also Daniil Hunter. Like, those were loaded defensive lines when he was there. And obviously Petson came from like Myles Garrett. So they're a team to me where like if a Christian Wilkins reaches the market, I think they go crazy there. Like those type of players, I think they'll be very, very in on. And then let the young guys play around them. But interior defensive line like that, like I think they could make a big splash. Like
Justin Madubuike as well. Like if he hits the market, something like that.
If he hits the market, I think they'll be in on it for sure.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, we talk about interior defensive line for the Cardinals all the time here on this show. It's, they're not going to draft one at 4. 27, Jerzon Newton kind of comes into play there. But if they can supplement that in free agency, that frees you up. You probably get a sweet spot and hit a good corner as well. If you're going wide receiver, if we think that they're going to go Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 4, then I think you can get corner at either 27 or 35, somebody who could really help out this team. And not having to address interior defensive line as early because there's some good interior defensive linemen in this class, but if you don't get Newton or Byron Murphy, it's not like a guarantee these guys are going to be 3-down impact players for you. So hitting that in free agency and spending your money there, I do think makes a lot of sense for Arizona. I like that. What about the Los Angeles Rams? Speaking of youth movement, I mean, this is a team that, again, we thought was going to have to turn the page big time, eat their vegetables, if you will, just take their lumps. The bill was coming due. You're going to suck this year. And that's what we thought that was going to be the case for the Rams and Sean McVay. Oh, look, one of the best coaches in the NFL continues to be one of the best coaches in the NFL. They made a lot of good work of that rookie class that they got last year. A lot of great experience from guys like Steve Avila and Byron Young, Kobe Turner. Just a lot of guys that were able to play well. Kyron Williams is a second year guy, but he played well. And oh yeah, by the way, Puka Nacua broke the rookie receiving record. So where does this team go from now? Because it felt like they were kind of taking their foot off the gas a little bit. We were making the joke like, oh, they finally have a first round pick. Like maybe they'll actually just take the youth movement. And then it's like, all right, well, team's still good. So are we just hammering the gas? Are we spending more in free agency? What are we doing here for the Rams?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, Mike Shula, or I said the same joke on the Sam and Steve show, but whatever Shula is now the defensive coordinator, he's a Shula. He's there. He's been there for a while. So I think they will be looking for a dynamic DB. I could see them saying, look, we now love our young defensive line around Aaron Donald. They obviously could still get better. I'm always too mean to Michael Hoyt, who played. It's not his fault. He played 350 coverage snaps, but they could add more on D-line. But I think if they're going to make a splash in free agency, I could also see, I'm not trying to get a Jalen Ramsey, it doesn't exist, but get a L'Jarius Sneed. Get a guy that you can move all over the field and do different things with. And maybe they're not playing that type of defense, but they still want to run kind of that Brandon Staley, cover six and quarters and heavy zone defense. So maybe he's not a fit, but just a big name, I think DB would make sense for them potentially. And then, I think otherwise they're going to have 1 million picks. Their first round pick since Jared Goff, which is exciting.
Which is crazy.
I know.
Jared Goff's getting old. How old is Jared Goff now?
Probably 31. Right? 2016
Jared Goff is 29.
Okay, I was a little bullish there.
He's
good for Jared Goff. Good for Jared
Goff. Not quite there. For what? Turning 39?
For not being 30
yet. 30.
Yeah, 29-year-old. Shout out.
Good for you, buddy.
Yeah,
good for
shout
you.
out being 29.
The Rams have pick 19 in the first round. And they have a second round pick, 2 third-round picks, 3 fifth-round picks, 3 sixth-round picks. Sorry, 4 sixth-round picks.
Oh, yeah.
And nothing in the 7th round.
That's Les Snead, baby. There's no worse misnomer than the F them picks thing because no one likes picks more than Les Snead. The guy makes 18 picks a draft class. They're just all
really late.
Yeah, they're usually just after 150. But hey, when you find Puka Nacua's in him, and then you go from there.
It works out.
Yeah, I could see. It's funny to say with McVay and all that, but a lot of investment in free agency on defense, and then draft more receiving talent. Look, you got good play from Tutu Atwell and some of the smaller kind of auxiliary pieces on offense, but you are going to lose Cooper Kupp. Unfortunately, Tyler Higbee, of course, had that ACL injury late in the year. I think you draft for offense, probably sign for defense from them.
Wait, you're going to lose Cooper Kupp?
Eventually.
Oh, are they?
He's not going to play for eternity. You think he has the Infinity Stones?
Well, wait, how old is Cooper Kupp?
I don't know.
You said
30.
You said that he's retiring soon.
I mean,
that thought has never even crossed my mind. How old is he?
He's 31, brother. Or he's going to be 31 next year. That's old.
Damn, is he?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, he was an older rookie out of Eastern Washington.
His game's timeless. His game's timeless. He's not going to retire.
He does. His game will age pretty well. Yeah, that's fair. He'll have that Golden Tate swag until he's 35. But
he's going to do the Jerry Rice thing where he's playing when he's – because what was the last – how old was Jerry the last year he played?
I think. He was absurd.
He was absurd.
He was 35, not 39. 35, 36, I want to say.
I feel he was older than that.
No, I think actually the first guess may have been more right. He was putting up numbies still, too.
Brother, you are way undershooting him.
Okay, 39, the first guess?
The last year that he played was 2004. He was 42 years old.
Holy smokes.
He had a 1,200-yard season in 2002 as a 40-year-old.
That is,
you know what happened? You know what happened at the end of that season? Yeah, you're right. Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the world title. Just wanted to remind everybody.
Yeah.
That's nuts. 39 and 40 years old. He had an 1,100-yard season and a 1,200-yard season. In 2003, the year after, he had 869 yards.
Not to disrespect another Bucs legend, that is, and Tom Brady's Tom Brady. That's way more impressive than what Tom Brady did. Am I crazy for saying that?
Yes, because Tom Brady could still be playing today if
he could, and it would be impressive
if his family life didn't like go to hell behind him. I think that he would actually still be playing today.
The next wide receiver that's 35 years old that has 800 receiving yards. I don't think when's the next time that happens?
Cooper Kupp. We're having a conversation.
All right, Cooper Kupp. You're right.
It's going to be Cooper Kupp. No, sorry. It's going to be Mike Evans because he's still going to be in the league. And everybody knows that if Mike Evans is in the league, it's 1,000 yards every time. So, no, but I genuinely believe that it could be Cooper Kupp if you go 35.
Dude, remember who's
the oldest receiver right now who's like doing it?
Like, dude, think about this. Julio Jones is wearing like obscure numbers that like the equipment department has to like make up on the fly. He's probably like 33.
Julio Jones he's 34.
Yeah, exactly.
And Julio has not had a 1,000-yard season since 2019.
Exactly.
When he was 30, to give him credit.
I stand by it. Cut this, Richardson. What Jerry Rice did was way more impressive than Tom Brady.
Yeah, cut it out of the show, Richardson. How old is Keenan Allen?
Probably 32.
Because he's got to be like 32, right?
Yeah.
Could Keenan still do it? Could Keenan still cook 3 years from now?
No. He could. But again, like Jerry was.
Oh no, he's only 30. He's only 31.
Oh, he's only 31. He's such a young pup. But like Jerry was still like long striding down the sideline in Seattle, just like cooking. That's wild.
Damn, we're on a tangent here, but I gotta. Yeah, Cooper Kupp's 30. He's about to go in his 31 years.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, and he's missed a lot of time with injury, man.
Jerry Rice, when he was 42, played for Oakland and Seattle.
Yeah,
bro, he played 14 games.
Yeah, it's insane.
No. I'm sorry. That's incorrect. He played 17 games. He started 14 games.
He played the extra game.
He played 14 games.
Yeah.
He started 14 games when he was 42 years old.
That's bananas.
What an animal.
There are receivers right now that are 32, and people are like, this guy's cooked beyond belief. And it's like,
you basically put Cooper Kupp in a morgue 5 minutes ago.
No.
You're ushering that guy into a coffin.
Look, Cooper Kupp, he's spunky, hardworking, tenacious, workhorse, jackhammer. He's not going to play until he's 42. I'll tell you that right now.
You're trying to put the guy into a nursing home, dude.
Oh, right. I was on a separate Buccaneers 2002 tangent. Just think about Brad Johnson, the legend.
I mean, how can you?
We saw Warren Sapp at Radio Row. Dude, scary fella. I'll say.
He's got some interesting fits.
Yeah, and the haircut, he had like the mohawk going, and most intimidating.
He's been rocking that a couple of years now.
That's fair enough. But yeah, he won the inaugural Mike Vrabel Intimidating Guy of the Week. Was Warren Sapp.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Speaking of Seattle Seahawks legend Jerry Rice, Seahawks are the last team that we have here on this list. What are the Seahawks doing? Obviously, a little bit of change with Pete Carroll, no longer the head coach there in Seattle. A lot of changes in the coaching staff because of it. They have Geno Smith. Some people are like, nah, you got to get rid of him. You got to sign a young quarterback. I don't know, man. Geno's playing really good ball. Where do you think that Seattle is right now? Do you think they're about to invest heavy in free agency, or do you think they're more on the side of, no, light in free agency? Let's lean more towards the draft.
They're in a bizarre spot. Let me read to you right now, Trevor. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I know we're all wrapping up here, but 5, 6.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
These 7 biggest cap hits, the 7 cap hits above $10 million on the Seattle Seahawks are as follows. Eugene Smith, good, positive, like him. Jamal Adams, probably not going to be there. No. Tyler Lockett, guess how old he is. DK Metcalf. He's probably 31, 32. DK Metcalf. All right, so hold on. So to review, Geno, Jamal Adams, gone. Tyler Lockett, old, good. DK Metcalf, Quandre Diggs, also probably 32. Draymond Jones, and Will Dissly. So you have probably, 60% of your salary cap tied into those 7 players. And 3 of them are borderline non-starters anymore. I always loved Quandre Diggs. He was not good last year. Anyway, so I don't think
Jamal's out of there. Jamal's got to get out of there.
No, Jamal's gone. Jamal's the most gone. So yeah, I mean, just come on. So I don't think they're going to spend a ton. I think they're going to have to kind of just like let this youth movement. They had all these extra draft capital. The Russ trade could not have come at a better time. Like, imagine if they didn't trade him and they gave him an extension, and we're like, that team would be cheeks. So anyway, yeah, I think they're going to be pretty quiet. The Draymond was a big splash last year. Didn't go particularly well. I think you're just saying, hey, Mike McDonald, let's get career years out of everyone, just like you did in Baltimore. And then maybe, like interior offensive line. Because I mentioned Evan Brown at center. Unlike Jonah Jackson, a guy that I'm too high on, the inverse is Damian Lewis, the left guard at LSU, who I loved his tape. I thought he was mean, physical, good run blocker, pretty good pass protector. So anyway, I'll be way off on both of those two guys for those curious. Yeah.
All right, there we go. That's it. Those are all the NFC teams that we have. A little bit of a free agency primer for you with a draft scope that we're looking through that. If you guys have any takes on anything that I said or Brad said with free agent strategy or any of the draft strategy, let us know. Best way to get in on the show. Of course, the YouTube comments, youtube.com/@NFL Stock Exchange. If you are audio only, you can hit us up on X as well as Instagram. I'm at Tampa Bay Trey. Brad, what's your Instagram handle? Is it the same as your Twitter handle?
I don't have an Instagram. No, I don't have an Instagram.
You're not on Instagram at all?
Twitter guy, and then you can find me on the talk. I don't know what my name is on there, but I'm on there.
Yeah, what's the name on there? What's the name of the talk?
I have no idea, but I'm firing off takes. No, it's just Twitter. PFF_Brad. Okay. I don't have an Instagram. Social media, it's enough. It's enough.
That's fair. That's you know what? I do respect you. So at PFF_Brad, at PFF_Brad on Twitter. Whatever he is on TikTok, just search. If you just search Brad, he'll obviously be the most famous Brad that comes up, so you'll be able to see it. He'll be on the top of the list. But Brad and I are going to be back with you either tomorrow or the next day, talk about the AFC team. So we're going to go through the same exercise. We're going to give you guys the full scope of what you can expect to see in free agency that will supplement the draft. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Brad Spielberger. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. See you guys tomorrow.